All right, so we're looking at the reproductive lab. So this is going to be exercise 42, the reproductive system. Now, a thing to keep in mind on the quiz that involves this, quiz 9, you're also going to have genetics and meiosis. So online, there is a genetics and meiosis chapter. Print that off and study that. They do kind of correspond with exercise 43 that has pretty colored pictures of spermiogenesis and oogenesis. So you can see pretty colored pictures of that. But again, if you do the handout, that is completely everything you need to know. Genetic stuff, again, that handout has everything you're going to need to know. Exercise 45 does have some stuff if you want to look at professional pictures. But read over those, be prepared to look at those for the quiz 9 along with the reproductive chapter, and they're also going to be on the last practical. So starting with exercise 42, the first part is all about the boys. So figure 42.1 on page 626. Also 42.1 continued on the next page. That's all the boy parts. We're also including figure 42.2 on there as well. So if we look at figure 42.1, with the bulbourethral gland, which is on the free edge, it's also called the Cowper's gland, like cow, like moo cow, with a PER at the end of it. They're interchangeable. You do not have to know the ampulla of the ductus deferens. You just know the ductus deferens, also known as the vas deferens. On page 627, on the spiral side, you do not have to know the orifices of the prostatic ducts. On the urethra, it is membranous urethra, cross out intermediate part of, and just put membranous urethra. You do not have to know the root of the penis. The spongy urethra is the same as the penile urethra. On the free edge, you do not have to know the bulb of the penis or the crus of the penis. With the bulbourethral or Cowper's gland, you do not have to know the duct or its opening. And picture C, you do not have to know the deep vessels and nerves. You do not have to know the deep arteries. You do not have to know the tunica albuginea. And again, the penile urethra is the same as spongy urethra. On figure 42.2, you can ignore picture C and B. On picture A, we're actually going to cross out a lot of this stuff. This is a really good picture for lecture. We'll be talking about all those parts, but our model doesn't show them all. So you can cross out spiral side, the efferent ductule, the ret testis, the straight tubule, cross out the duct of the epididymis. On the other side, you can cross out the lobule, the septum, the tunica albuginea, and the tunica vaginalis, and the cavity of the tunica vaginalis. All right, so we're caught up. Let's go ahead and start labeling these models, combining 42.1 and 42.2. So we have the penis, we have the body of the penis, the glans of the penis, the prepuce, which some people call the foreskin. We have the scrotum, we have the testis, the epididymis, the head of the epididymis, the tail of the epididymis. We have the spermatic cord. And the spermatic cord is going to be made out of blood vessels, so the artery and the vein. It's also going to have the vas deferens in it and the cremaster muscle. Again, the cremaster muscle will raise and lower the scrotum to help maintain temperature. And then we have the bladder up here. Removing the penis so we can see structures. Again, we have the testis, we have the epididymis, the head of the epididymis, the tail of the epididymis, the vas deferens, the spermatic cord, and this little red guy on the outside is the cremaster muscle. We have the raphe that separates the two testes from each other, and we have the scrotum. And we can see the corpora cavernosa and the corpora spongiosa and the penile urethra right there. Looking at it from the back, you can see the bladder. We have the vas deferens coming in, the seminal vesicles on the back, and where the vas deferens and the seminal vesicles join, we're going to have the common ejaculatory duct. And then we have the prostate gland. Again, this is the bladder, and we can see the ureters coming in. Cross-section wise, we have the bladder. So again, we have the mucosa that has rugae made out of transitional epithelium, the submucosa, the muscularis, and the peritoneum. We have the trigon. We have the prosthetic urethra, the membranous urethra, fairly small, and the penile urethra. We're going to have the prostate gland, and this is the opening to the common ejaculatory duct coming in from the back. We have the Cowper's or bulbourethral gland. We have the corpora cavernosa and the corpora spongiosa. Again, we can see the raphe that's separating the testis from each other in the scrotum. Close-up of the penis, again, we're going to have the glans penis, the body of the penis. We have the penile urethra. Here is the external urethral meatus, that is the opening to the outside. We have the corpora cavernosa, there's two of them, and the corpora spongiosum, there's only one of those guys. That's all over the place on the inside. Some stuff about the boys that would have been on the board. Again, the primary organs for males are testes. They are going to produce both the gametes, the sperm, as well as the hormones, the testosterone. The secondary organs are going to produce seminal fluid. So we have the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, and the Cowper's gland. The common ejaculatory duct, your book just says ejaculatory duct, but it is considered common. That is where the vas deferens and the seminal vesicles join. So the sperm and the seminal fluid enter at the same time into the urethra. The spermatic duct, again, is going to attach the testis to the rest of the body so that stuff can come in and out of the scrotum. We have the cremaster muscle that raises and lowers the scrotum to help cool or warm the testis. It will have blood vessels, arterioles, and veins. You'll have the vas deferens, the duct that is going to carry out the sperm, and then, of course, lymphatic vessels. The spermatic cord, if you look at it, and the ductus deferens, the vas deferens, they look like they loop up and over the ureters and then come into the back side of the bladder. And the reason why they do that, why they kind of loop around instead of not twist around the ureter, is because during fetal development, the ovaries and the testis are in the exact same location. We learned this in Jurassic Park. All vertebrate females start off as female. But what happens is at a certain point in time, you're going to have testosterone that's going to cause the testis to drop out of the body coming from mom. And as the testis drop down or descend, they're going to pass laterally and vertically to the ureter. So it causes them to loop over the ureter. So that's why they look like they're twisted. It's because of the way they dropped out of the body. Now, cryptorchidism, this is what happens when a boy is born without the testes that have descended into the scrotum. So again, pediatricians will check if the testes are not there. They will go do surgery to pull them into the scrotum because the male will be sterile. He will not be able to produce sperm if the testes are still in the body. He can still make testosterone. He'll still be a boy. He'll just have nothing in his scrotum. So crypt means hidden, and apparently orchid means testis. 3% of males have this condition and have to get the testis brought into the scrotum so they can function properly. Moving on to the female. Figure 42.3 you can ignore. Figure 42.4, 42.5 you can ignore. 42.6, if you're going to be a gynecologist, there's your life, but the rest of us, we're going to ignore that. And we're just going to skip directly over to the female, which is 42.7. So our female structures. Looking at 42.7, picture A, on the free edge, you do not have to know the uteral sacral ligament. You do not have to know the retrouterine pouch. You do not have to know the posterior fornix. You do not have to know the anterior fornix. On the spiral side, you do not have to know the vestibular uterine pouch. No pouches, no fornixes. The greater vestibular gland, that's also called the Bartholin's gland. We'll talk about that in lecture, but our model does not include that, so you can ignore that right now. 42.7b, you can cross out ovarian blood vessels on the free edge. You can cross out uterine blood vessels. You can cross out the isthmus of the uterus. You can cross out the uteral sacral ligament. You can cross out the cardinal transverse cervical ligament. Cross out lateral fornix. On the spiral side, under the uterine tube, you do not have to know the ampulla or the isthmus of the uterine tube. You do not have to know the internal os or the external os, the OS guys. And with the cervix of the uterus, you can just call it cervix. You don't have to say cervical canal. Okay, so addressing the model. So this is the outside. Here we have the mons pubis. We're going to have, here's your vaginal opening here. The urethral opening would be in front of that. And there is your anal opening. Flipped her over, you can see the uterus. We have the fundus of the uterus, the body of the uterus, cervix of the uterus down here. Here's that uterine tube, also the same as the fallopian tube or the oviduct. They are interchangeable. Here are the fimbriae, the little fingers at the end of the infundibulum of the oviduct. Here's the ovaries, and this is the ovarian ligament. Okay. This is the broad ligament, and it's called the broad ligament because it's wide, not because it's a girl. And it has two parts. We have the mesosalpinx that is going to connect to the oviduct, and the mesometrium is going to connect to the uterus. You can cross out mesovarium. I forgot that one to cross out. Right here is where we have our round ligament that is going forward to anchor things. To anchor to the front of the female. Okay, cross-section wise, again, we're going to have the mons pubis. We have the labia majora, the labia minora. I forgot to point that out. Labia majora, labia minora. So the major is called majus for single. The minor is minus for single. I don't care if you make them plural or single, whichever makes you happy. This is the clitoris. Here is the glans clitoris, the part that you can see. There is the prepuce that will be on the clitoris. Here is the urethra. And again, we have the bladder. So we've got the mucosa, the submucosa, muscularis, peritoneum, rugae, trigon. We have the vagina. We have the cervix of the uterus, the body of the uterus, the fundus of the uterus. We do have to have of the uterus because stomachs also have a fundus. Layers, we have the endometrium, the myometrium, muscle layer, and the perimetrium, the outer layer. And we have the rectum and the anus. Outside, again, the broad ligaments here. Okay, so we have the mesometrium and the mesosalpinx from the outside. And here's that mons pubis and the labia majora. Here we have a cross-section of the uterus. So we have the fundus of the uterus, the body of the uterus, the cervix of the uterus. Layers, we have the endometrium, we have the myometrium, and we have the perimetrium. Figure 42.8, 42.9 you can ignore. Figure 42.10 you can ignore. We are adding the pregnant uterus. Okay, so here we have the fundus of the uterus, the body of the uterus. Here's the mons pubis, and we can see the oviduct and the fimbriae. Rotating her around, the fundus of the uterus, the body of the uterus. Down here would be the cervix of the uterus. Here's the ovary and the ovarian ligament. We have the oviduct or fallopian tube or uterine tube and the fimbriae. Opened up, again we see the vagina. We have the cervix of the uterus. We have the body of the uterus. We have the fundus of the uterus. Layers, we have the endometrium here. The myometrium that has the muscle, the perimetrium on the outside. Here we have the placenta. Here is our ugly baby. And I don't remember if I said cervix of the uterus, but there it is again. Okay. Board stuff. So the primary organs for females are the ovaries. So they are going to make the gametes, the eggs, as well as the hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Now, as we saw on our model, there are 4 ligaments that hold the female reproductive structures in place so they don't fall or prolapse on any of the other organs. So we have the round ligament that attaches the uterus to the labia majora. We have the suspensory ligament that suspends the ovaries from top. We have the ovarian ligament that holds the ovaries in position by the uterus. Then we have the broad ligament, again broad because it's wide, and we have the mesosalpinx that is going to attach the uterine tube, and the mesometrium that is going to attach the uterus. Again, when we see metrium, it usually means uterus, like we saw endometrium, perimetrium, and myometrium, excuse me. And that is it for this chapter. Again, the genetic stuff that will be on this quiz and this practical, and the meiosis stuff on this quiz and this practical, you have the handouts to read over for those guys.